So my name is Danielle Woolley. I'm a marketing cloud consultant at ACQUIA, and my role is to work with customers on our marketing cloud suite of products to help them achieve their goals and to get the most from the technology. I do that by providing best practice guidance, strategic advice, and product expertise and training. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about WaterAid. WaterAid are a client who I've been working with over the past 12 months to execute a personalization strategy on their websites. I didn't mention actually a little bit about my background, which will probably help you with the context of this presentation, but my background is in marketing. I worked as a marketing manager client side for a number of years before moving agency side and finally moving into marketing technology, where my real passion is working with customers to help them, as I mentioned, achieve their goals with the technology. So I'm just very happy to be here to be talking to you about this case study. So what am I, I can move my slides, that would help. So this is what I'm going to be covering today. We're going to be talking a bit about what WaterAid were trying to achieve with personalization. I'm going to be digging into the technology, which was of course Drupal and ACQUIA's website personalization tool, and giving you some insights. I see a message saying I don't see and hear anything. Michaela, am I talking? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's totally fine when participants are having the technical issue. They need to click on the button which is saying technical issue, launch the Zoom app, so they're gonna see it properly. But I am checking the presentation and it's totally fine.
Okay, cool. Maybe maybe someone else can give me a thumbs up. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to be giving you some insight into what it was about this particular project, which I think contributed to its success, and I'm also going to be sharing with you some of the campaigns that they ran, the creative and the results that they saw. Okay. So first of all, a little bit about WaterAid. They are a global non-profit organisation, and they really transform people's lives by providing access to clean water, decent toilets and hygiene facilities to people who live without these basic human rights. They were established back in 1981 by the UK water industry before becoming an independent charity. And just to share some stats, since forming, they've helped 26 million people get access to clean water, and a similar number access to decent toilet facilities as well. So that's pretty amazing. So what did WaterAid want to achieve with personalization? So obviously WaterAid understand that without their supporters, they wouldn't be able to do the really important work that they do. So, looking after and recognizing their supporters is really important to the charity. And it's also about more than, just the securing the donation or the conversion. It's about building a longer term relationship with their supporters. Or in WaterAid's words, taking their supporters on a journey of engagement from awareness to brand love. And to enable them to do that, they wanted to leverage ACQUIA personalization to get a kind of deeper understanding of how their supporters were engaging on their website. What were their interests and needs of the various different audiences that they were catering for. And the intent was to create relevant and engaging experiences, which obviously would encourage people to stay on the site for longer, to consume more content. And they also wanted to see an uplift in the more commercial KPIs. So increasing that conversion rate and increasing average donation value. So these were the type of metrics that they wanted to influence and to move the dial on. Okay. So who was involved in this project? Well, obviously the WaterAid team, they were the overall owners of the project, and they were the ones responsible for creating the personalized content and for executing the campaigns on their site. We were supported by Access, who are their global website development partner, and Access were responsible for helping them get the tool working and configured on their websites. They also provided support in terms of strategy and helping them develop a scalable workflow around creating personalized content and executing it with their Drupal site architecture. And of course, there was ACQUIA, who I represent, but we were providing the technology and also product training and support, strategic guidance and best practice advice to help them develop and get the best results from their personalization strategy. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to dig into the technology. I'm not going to spend too long here because I don't want it to feel like a sales pitch or anything like that, but I think it is useful to understand a little bit about how ACQUIA's personalization tool works. So ACQUIA Personalization, it is a single channel tool for personalizing websites. It sits within our Marketing Cloud suite of products, which you can see on the right in the pink, which also includes a marketing automation tool and a customer data platform. So I'm sure you'll hear other people from ACQUIA talking about Marketing Cloud over the course of this event. But just to say that it's quite exciting to be in my role at ACQUIA at the moment, because our product teams have a very ambitious roadmap for integrating these products, and I'm very excited that there will soon be a single user interface and a unified data layer, which means that customer data can be brought together from across the organization, and you get that kind of true single customer view, which you can then leverage across all of your channels using the different parts of the Marketing Cloud. So for this case study, we're focusing particularly on website personalization. So ACQUIA Personalization is a marketer-friendly tool. You don't have to be a developer to use it. It was built from the ground up by ACQUIA to work really well with Drupal sites, which means that you can do some cool stuff like leveraging Drupal taxonomies for collecting or building user visitor profiles based on their behavior and their particular favorite content types and keywords as they visit the site. It also a thing that sort of sets ACQUIA Personalization apart somewhat is that the usual workflow for creating personalized content is to do so within Drupal. And this has some advantages in that the content creation goes through the usual workflow and approvals process. So you keep all your content in one place rather than having personalized content, stored somewhere else. And it also gives a bit more control because, you don't have marketers creating odd bits of content here and there. And it also gives a kind of fuller editing experience as well. So you're not just limited to kind of inline editing, changing a call to action or a headline or something like that. You can really create sections of personalized content that will transform the experience for visitors coming to your site. ACQUIA Personalization is actually built up of three main components. So there is Profile Manager, which you see on the right in the orange, and that's where all the data magic happens. So when a visitor comes to a site, a unique profile is created, and then certain contextual data is captured, but also behavioral data over time. So what content is somebody viewing, what content types, you get an insight into their behavior and engagement on the site. Are they submitting a form or watching videos or downloading content? And you can build up a kind of profile of that user over time. So it's in Profile Manager that you can create audiences, create segments to deliver personalized experiences. And that actually happens in Campaign Builder. So that's where the marketer goes in, they select their audience, they create what we call a slot, which is selecting an area of the page where they want to replace the default content with some personalized content specifically for that audience. And the way that that content is made available for the marketer when they create the campaign is through Content Hub, which is ACQUIA's content syndication tool. So what happens is you create the content in Drupal, and that content is then uploaded up to Content Hub, where the marketer can select it to create their personalization campaigns for their selected audiences. Cool, so I won't spend long on this slide, but this gives you an idea of some of the different data that ACQUIA is collecting. It can be contextual data related to that session, like whereabouts in the world is somebody, and that's based on IP address. What device are they coming to the site on? Are they a first-time visitor? Are they clicking through from a particular marketing campaign, perhaps from an email or from an ad on Facebook or something like that? And then, as I also mentioned, it collects data over time based on their behavior on the site. What content are they viewing? Have they submitted data via a form which can be collected in ACQUIA personalization? Have they downloaded some content, whatever? And this allows you to build up profiles and create segments and audiences for personalization. So back to WaterAid before I divert too much. So I'm going to be giving you some insights into the WaterAid project and how we approach developing a strategy and executing it on the site. Okay, so obviously with any project, getting the right team together, getting the right people involved is key to success. And when I first started working with WaterAid, they'd actually had the tool for some time, and it was somewhat in danger of becoming shelfware. But at that point, the team were absolutely determined to give it a good go and make a success of it. So we recommended that they get people involved from relevant teams across the organization. So not just the website owners, but also the content team, because you can't really roll out personalization without having people creating content for your audiences. We also wanted to involve somebody from data and analytics, somebody who would be able to help us understand user journeys on the site and help us measure some of the metrics and the success of the personalizations that we were creating. We also got digital marketing team involved, because they're the ones actually creating the campaigns, the acquisition campaigns that are driving people to the site, whether that's email or social or paid search. So this was the kind of core project team. They also nominated 2 super users or champions to train up on the tool, and that was 2 people, somebody from the digital marketing team and also the digital content team. And they were supported, as I explained, by partners at Access, their web partner, and also ACQUIA. So we had the team together, and then what did we do next? So as I explained at the beginning, WaterAid were pretty clear on why and what they wanted to do. They had some KPIs. They also had a pretty good idea of some of their key audiences, but what they were struggling with was actually translating this into a kind of practical, fully formed use case that they could run with and start creating campaigns. So one of the first things we did was organised a workshop at the ACQUIA offices in Reading, and the workshop was focused on use case ideation, so actually coming up with these kind of practical executable use cases. And when what I mean by a use case with website personalization, I think of it as the 3 W's. So it's who, what audience, what content are you going to show the audience, and where are you going to show them this content? So whereabouts on the page, on the site, are you going to show this content? So we needed to know the who, the what, and the where. So what we did in the workshop was we actually split up into breakout groups, and each breakout group focused on a different key audience for the charity. So you'll see the audiences on the screen, but it varied from, you know, Mr. Joe Public clicking through from Facebook wanting to make a donation, to people who wanted to raise money on behalf of the charity by participating in an event like a marathon or organising a bake sale or whatever it is. Other important audiences for WaterAid are teachers or education, people raising awareness of the issues that WaterAid are tackling. So they have a lot of content and resources on their site to support people in education. And there's also high value donors, so people, corporations, or people leaving money in trusts and wills, etc. So these were some of the audiences that were identified. And then in our breakout group, we used this kind of structure to define the use cases that we wanted to test out on the website. So this includes the kind of the who, what, where, the audience. How do we know somebody is part of that target audience when they come to the site? Do we know because they've clicked through from a particular email campaign, or because they've viewed certain pages which indicate that they are part of that audience? We also decided what content, what call to action messaging that we were going to show that audience, and whereabouts on the site that content would be placed. And another important part was actually what goal would we be tracking for that personalization campaign? How would we measure success? And each group went away, did their ideation, and what we ended up with. So I'm not going to go into detail on these use cases. I'm going to share some of the use cases towards the end of this presentation, but we essentially ended up with a whole bunch of use cases which formed a really good starting point for WaterAid, and we did some kind of simple prioritization to identify what would be the quick wins, some that would be reasonably easy to get started with, but also generate some significant results. So once we'd done that, it was over to WaterAid to prepare the content, to execute the campaigns, and we provided product training to help them do that. But then I think it's quite important to highlight that this just wasn't a one-off process. It actually became a kind of a cyclical process, because once we'd executed some of the initial use cases, some worked well, some didn't work so well, so we needed to kind of take stock and review and understand what the learnings were. And then we kind of went again into this process of actually, is this going to deliver on our goals? Do we need to reprioritize here? Based on this behavior, perhaps this approach makes more sense. So we actually went through this kind of workshop process 2 more times over the 12 months, and we did that remotely because, of course, we were on lockdown. But it was really interesting to see the kind of development of WaterAid's understanding and sort of new ideas coming through based on what they'd seen from the results so far. So that was a really nice process. While I'm in approach, I want to talk a little bit around how ACQUIA personalization worked with WaterAid's Drupal site and Drupal architecture. So as I mentioned, the usual workflow for creating personalized content is to do so in the Drupal site. And so one of the key decisions that you need to make when deciding a workflow is how you're going to organize that personalized content. Are you going to keep it all globally, or are you going to kind of organize it attached to the node or the page where you're actually using that personalized content? And another important decision to make is what entities are you going to use for personalization? So actually any entity in Drupal is eligible to use as personalized content, but as WaterAid were using paragraphs, it made sense for them to use paragraphs. And they wanted to use paragraphs in such a way as it would be easy for content editors to go in, to be able to see what content was personalized content and what wasn't, to be able to maintain and edit that content and easily create new content. So they worked with Access to develop this workflow, which included separate fields and a separate field set, as you can see on the screen. So this approach was very scalable for them and allowed them to keep everything very nicely organized within the site. Okay, so the results, how much time have I got left? Okay, so I've split these into kind of groups of crawl, walk, run, but I wanted to share some of the highlights, some of the interesting campaigns and results that we saw over the last year. So first of all, crawl. So these were the first campaigns that WaterAid launched on the site, and they launched them at the end of last year. And the audience that they selected was people interested in participating in events. And the goal was to obviously get more people to actually commit and register to take part in these events and to raise money on behalf of WaterAid. So this is where we did leverage the Drupal taxonomy. So WaterAid had a taxonomy on their site called event type, and we were able to map that into Lift to identify the favorite event type. So if I'd come to the site and I'd looked at you know, maybe a couple of cycling events but one running event, then we would decide that cycling was my favorite event type, and I would see the corresponding personalization. So the personalization that they started with was on the homepage. So if you'd previously come to the site and shown an interest in an event, then when you came back to the homepage, you'd see this personalized imagery and call to action, encouraging you to complete the process and register for the event. So we saw some really promising results. The click-through rate on the personalized content was much higher than the average click-through rate on that homepage hero that they would see for the default content. So that was really good. One thing that was quite difficult to measure was the conversion rate on the people actually registering, because that happened on a third-party external site. But you know, definitely the increased traffic going back to the event pages was very encouraging, and it was a good, promising start for WaterAid. For the next phase, the WaterAid team decided they wanted to focus in particular on increasing donations. And working with their analyst, they saw that people who went to the donation form but then moved away without completing their donation would, there was quite a significant drop-off rate, but typically those people would then move to the homepage. So the WaterAid team hypothesized that if they provided a kind of abandoned donation sort of reminder and stronger call to action, encouraging people to go back to the form, then that would contribute to an overall uplift in conversion rate and be able to recapture those lost donations. So what they also wanted to do was do some A/B testing around the messaging and call to action to see what would work best to secure that conversion. So there were some interesting results to this, and some of the creative definitely worked a lot better than other creative in terms of getting people back to the donation form. So that provided some interesting insight into some of the best call to action. You can see an example on the screen. So what was less easy to actually attribute was whether or not somebody then actually followed through and completed that donation. And what they did after that was some more testing on the donation form itself to identify, you know, what messaging and to use on the donation form to actually optimize that conversion rate there as well. So sort of interesting progression there through different testing and use cases to create an overall uplift to their conversion rate. So for the most recent stage, so coming towards the end of this year, The focus was on creating a really consistent kind of multi-channel experience for people coming to the site. So they launched a number of campaigns to support acquisition campaigns that they were running, mainly on social, I think on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. So when people came to the site through those campaigns, personalizing the landing page, but not just the landing page, also other pages as they moved around the site and moved through to the donation form. And again, you know, some of these campaigns perform better than others, but overall they were seeing higher click-through rates on personalized content compared to default content. And some of the campaigns had very high conversion rates and some of them had lower. But overall, they ran a number of these campaigns and saw over 1,000 donations as completed campaign goals over a 3-month period. So they were really pleased with these results. So a big part of this stage was actually getting personalization into a kind of business as usual status. So really integrating it as a step in their campaign planning. They rolled it out to other websites. They also added some of the personalization results to their regular marketing reporting, which was shared with senior stakeholders across the organization. And also integrating ACQUIA personalization with Google Analytics. So it's possible to track the segments and the audiences that you create in ACQUIA and then map them to dimensions in Google Analytics, which can give you more insight into the behavior of those particular segments. So we haven't got much time left, actually. But I guess to kind of sum it up, you know, it's been really exciting working with WaterAid over the past year and seeing them, you know, learn and develop their personalization strategy and, you know, get some really encouraging results. And I think where we're going next, and one learning from this experience is, you know, we focused a lot on attribution and goals and trying to measure the success of personalization, but you can never do too much of that because this project has had quite a lot of focus from senior people within the WaterAid charity, and there's a lot of pressure now to actually justify the time and effort that goes into personalization and really prove that return on investment. So the focus now is a bit more on some evergreen campaigns and focusing on some of the higher value audiences like corporations and higher value donors. So that's kind of where we're going next. But it's just in the last couple of minutes. If there are any questions, please fire away.
So on that point, I think most people have actually dialed in via Zoom because of the issues on the on-air. So just to remind everyone that if you have any questions, just quickly pop them in the on-air event platform, and I'll read them out. But there are none thus far.
Oh, well, that is a shame.
I think it's due to the technical issues with it experiencing. So most people have actually come onto Zoom, where we obviously don't have the Q&A function. But again, if everyone's on the on-air app, please just pop them in there, and we'll read them out. But if any come in after time as well, we'll get back to you offline as well.
Great stuff. Okay, I'll hang around for the last minute or so in case anyone does come back into the app. But hopefully it was an interesting session. I know it was probably more relevant to some of the sort of the business and marketing attendees here, but hopefully it gives you a bit of insight into how the ACQUIA tool works with the Drupal site and how we approached personalization, which can certainly be a bit overwhelming, but the way that we approached it through focusing on audiences, generating use cases, and then prioritizing those use cases.
So have actually just had one quick question in. It says, can the link be used on-premise Drupal?
Yeah, so you can use ACQUIA personalization on any Drupal site. They don't have to be hosted by ACQUIA, and I've worked with a number of customers who aren't ACQUIA hosted using the personalization tool.
Perfect, and I think that probably brings us nicely to the end, actually. Yeah, that's the final question for now. So
Okay, great. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions and they want to contact me directly, then please do. And thanks for joining today. Thanks for listening.